Hey guys, it's Oluchi for Ways Breakfast. Thanks for always tuning in. Our research has shown that you're probably not subscribed to our channel. What are you waiting for? Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you never miss out on our latest content and stay in the loop with all things Ways. If the channel grows, it means more great content for you guys. So hit that subscribe button now.
Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? Hashtag Ways, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Sayuame Mesale, and today I have with us Messi Akpang.
That works.
And Marianne Duke Okon.
That's my government name.
How are you ladies doing? Marianne, let me start with you. How was your weekend? What's going on? How did the week
So
start
my
for
weekend
you?
was I'm unavailable. Then literally, I didn't step out of my house. I didn't go anywhere. I slept because I had a really long week. So also the weekend I was in bed, giving myself a treat. Yes, as you can see, I look better.
If somebody see you now, they will take you seriously. The Lord be with you. Was it? But it's good though.
No,
Rest
it was a
is
very
good.
restful weekend for me. I had migraines. I couldn't wear my glasses. I had not slept well, so I needed to just turn off my
Shut
social
down.
media and just sleep. That's what I
Fortunately,
did.
I was in class all through. Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
You're a professor in the making.
It's not that one. I don't know who sent me message.
You're equal to the tax.
I didn't see it
You're equal
coming.
to the
I was
tax.
not informed.
You're equal to the tax, and you can do it. Just keep
Mercy,
going.
how are
I'm
you?
very well, thank you.
No. Actually, Saturday I was in class all through, but I was breathing in class all through.
I like
It was
that.
dramatic.
But you can multitask.
It was not funny.
Oh yeah, I get it now.
Online classes. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
So, how was your weekend?
My weekend was awesome. I was taking a break from reportage, being on the field.
I
and
love
all
the
that.
report you did.
Yeah, it
Though.
was
Thank
a
you
really
so much.
yes,
Thank
great
you.
report by the
Thank
way.
you.
Messi is such an amazing talent, and she's refusing
Yeah.
to share that talent with us.
That's not true.
I want to say it officially. I've fired her. In case you don't see her again from next week, just know that she's been fired.
No, it's not like that.
But that was a beautiful report.
Thank you so
I
much.
enjoyed watching it.
Thank
On
you.
reverse
Thank you.
Jackba.
Yeah, it was just, it's a part of the story that I think that we're not telling. As much as we have a lot of people leaving the country, we also have some persons who are also coming back now. You have those who have traveled via the regular route and those route, I beg your pardon, those who have traveled via the regular route and those who've gone through the irregular route. So whichever way, you still have a lot of people coming back. So it's like a market. You have people returning at all times and other people going to shop at all times. So yes, it was a very tedious one, but I mean, I'm super
good.
excited about it.
I think you had fun when you were doing it.
Yeah, she had fun. She had fun.
Yeah.
Right, so if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, is at Official Upgrade TV, please go there, subscribe, and also share the links, right? You can't be watching and not subscribing. Watch and subscribe, okay? Now, tonight, in partnership with Enough is Enough, we'll have a quick chat with Oluwafemi Ajibade. He's the operations lead at Citizens Gavel to discuss NSARS 4 years later. What has changed? What's next? You know, today is just an all-end SARS day.
I know.
It's interesting to have. But thank you so much, Ajibade, for joining us. If you can hear me, can you unmute yourself? Oh, sugar. Hello, are you there, Ajibade?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening. All right, so quick chat with you. So yesterday, October 20th, I saw a lot of few people posting on social media, we will never forget and all of that. But it's just really glaring that, again, as I have always said with Nigeria, we're so quick to forget a lot of things. We're so quick to move on, you know, and all of that. So what's your general assessment on the 4th anniversary of the NSAS protest?
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me? Am I
Yes,
audible?
yes, you are. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. So, of course, it's 4 years. It's been 4 years since NSAS, and of course, like you said, it's been a low-key affair when it comes to the commemoration and the anniversaries, so to speak, especially on social media. But offline, there has been a lot of activities post NSAS that
Oh
are
wow.
meant to, end the struggle and continue the call for an end to police brutality and, to reduce or to instill professionalism in the way the police work. So it might have been a low-key affair on social media, but there are still a lot of activities and there are still lots to be done when it comes to getting justice and making sure that police brutality is greatly reduced when it comes to Nigeria and the Nigerian police force.
Okay. All right. So, what did Enough is Enough specifically do on the 20th of October this year?
All right. So I think in commemoration of NSAS, we of course, my organization, Citizens Gavel, and we've been working together with Enough is Enough since 2020 to walk around providing legal support for victims of abuse when it comes to police brutality in general, and when it comes to victims of legal arrest during and after the NSAS process. So, of course, this year, we try to reconcile alongside EIA, we try to reconcile the work that we've done so far and what we can do to prepare for, subsequent protests when it comes to giving adequate legal support or psychosocial support basically to victims of illegal arrest or brutality during protests like this. Of course, there were conversations around the previous protests, the end bad governance protests that occurred this year, and there were issues around police brutality and illegal detention to these kind of issues to came up. So it's kind of like a kind of reoccurring theme when it comes to protests in Nigeria, when it comes to people trying to canvass for a change. So these are some of the conversation that EIE alongside government is having in terms of making sure that we try to implement some kind of institutional change when it comes to providing support for victims of abuse. And of course, well, we talk about some problems relating to data when it comes to representing people, when it comes to making sure that we get everybody out from detention. There are things that we've seen in our past experiences that connotes the fact that data is important. Most times we have duplicity of data, we have incorrect data, we have incomplete data. So we have conversations, or we are having conversations around that to make sure that we chart a strategy to make sure that we have adequate data to effectively provide support for victims of illegal detention incidental to either the NSAS protest, the end bad governance protest, or subsequent call for change that might be made by citizens of Nigeria, basically.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Would want to encourage you to keep up the good work. Would definitely be in touch to keep following up on the story. Now, thank you so much, guys. Remember, this was in partnership with Enough is Enough. All right. As you all know, we're having the same conversation around the NSAS Memorial, and we will be talking to our very own Oge of Lagos, Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. She will be joining us much later to have the conversation. And here's what we found as today's quote. It says, prisons do not disappear. Problems they did not disappear problems, they disappear human beings. This was from Angela. So as we said today, we want to have a conversation around the events that happened 4 years ago. And Nigeria was rocked, of course, with the NSAS protests and, of course, all the shootings and the alleged killings and all of that happened afterwards. We just want to review 4 years later what's going on, if anything has changed. So we'll go on a short break. When we come back from that break, we'll run through what we found in today's news. Thanks for staying with us now. Everyone Rights Day is celebrated in United Kingdom on the 21st of October. Although if a school can't manage this date, they are encouraged to celebrate the day that is most convenient to them. Of course, primary and secondary schools are encouraged to change the curriculum for one whole day to celebrate writing in all its form. It is a fantastic opportunity to celebrate creativity and the power of writing. It also encourages people of all ages and backgrounds to express themselves through words, whether it's journaling, poetry, storytelling, or any other form of writing. Yeah, everyone writes. I love this day. I used to write a lot, so I don't know what changed my life.
I never really liked writing.
I loved writing. I used to write letters.
Let me tell you, when I was in secondary school, you know there were 3 options: letter writing, essay, or article for publication. I tell you what, I loved to tell stories. An article for publication I used to go for, but I loved to write essays. I hated letter writing till today. I hate writing emails. But I don't understand how I've become a journalist, and I prefer
You're
not
even
to
good
write.
now. What do you study for?
English and literature.
Me study physics. I don't know what I'm doing here.
But you see, that's a beautiful
You're
thing.
still trying to understand the physics of everything.
That's how.
You're
How.
doing the physics of journalism.
Now, the real physics of journalism. That's how I did not like. What did they call the thing? Like I didn't like anything English. I love
why?
because I'm mathematical in my thinking. I like to calculate.
But you see,
just
the
do
happy
numbers.
now, they make more money now. They strategize like this.
I feel like, you know how it is that we all have preference with subjects. So even if you didn't love mathematics as a person, naturally, life is about calculation. Everything you do
It has to be
Yes.
strategic.
So
That's
all of that,
strategy,
you know.
baby.
And then we get to see that. I know that when they say find X and Y, that's very complex.
I used to
I hate
enjoy
math.
further
Oh,
maths,
Ooh,
mathematics,
if you send me
physics.
anything and
I
there's
don't
so
like
much
chemistry.
there's figures in it, my brain goes mush.
Oh,
And guys, I'm really smart, by the way.
yeah, pele.
Oh, you don't need to announce it.
You didn't have to say that. Oh yeah, let's run through what we found in the news. We have a guest. Let me start with you, Messi.
Oh, okay. So I found a story, very sad one. Chikwadweze, he received the news. He got his visa and he had to travel to his village in Enugu State to share the news with his father. You know how these things can be. So in an attempt to actually ensure that he has a successful time abroad or success abroad, his father then suggested that he visits a native doctor. When they visited the native doctor instructed that Chikwadwo be buried alive for 1 hour, 30 minutes as part of the fortification ritual. Now, unfortunately, when he was exhumed... Hold on. Just hold on now. Wait, let me finish. When he was exhumed after that time had passed, he was found dead, and the police was now involved. You know, the father was arrested, the native doctor, and all of that. When I saw this story, it really broke my heart. But, you know, it brings us back to the fact that we need to do better than our parents. We understand that our parents lived in an era where they didn't understand a lot of stuff. And we're young people. We need to think, logical thinking. We need to be reasonable, because humanly, you don't even need to be a doctor to understand the dynamics, how it works. The human body requires enough oxygen to survive. So when you put yourself, you find yourself in a place where you're confined for an hour. He was buried
in a coffin.
Well, that detail is not there, whether he was buried in a coffin or not, but he said he was
not,
buried.
There was no air.
So the fact that he didn't have air for 1 hour, 30 minutes, and you can't survive as a human being, you will suffocate. So it just, you know, I understand, like I said again, our parents should have known better. They don't know better.
My
we're
parents
here,
know better.
we should
sorry,
know
no,
better.
what?
So if your father suggests, I mean, we can't be allowing those kind of things, you know, pass through. The fact that you
So
want to be
it means that the
successful.
fortification, the person...
No, I think that they just lured him to his death.
I'm trying not
no,
to
he was
laugh,
just lured
but
to
this
his
is-
death
this is
because
sad.
I mean, it's not
my
reasonable.
father would never try to tell me that.
45
First things
for what?
first.
I don't understand.
No,
That for his
first things
success
first.
abroad. So you
No, I'm
get...
tackling her because she's saying her parents didn't know better.
No, I'm just
My
saying
parents
because it's
knew
not...
better.
So it's not everybody, you know, we don't have all parents on the same level. Do you understand what I mean? So let's just say that there's cultural belief and ignorance. First off, if it's me, I don't know, not to say that I don't love my father or my mother. I wouldn't even travel. Why am I going to travel to tell you that?
Why
I
are you
got
even
visa?
going to tell them on
You
the phone
could
and
just
move?
call them on the phone. So it just begs the
sad,
question
very
why
sad.
we're not
So the-
thinking,
the
we're
poor
not, you
boy
know,
is dead
reasoning.
now.
He's gone.
I think it's the.
you know, it's
I
over.
think it's the. I think it's the backwardness and the ignorance that pervades society. And when I say society, I'm using the word loosely because it seems that this is, I don't think that's an $10. If, let's say, Copy had a visa to go abroad, she
it's poverty that does all those things.
You took me right there because it's a poverty. It's a certain class of people who think that everybody's after their life. You know, I put out a story last week saying that somebody, if a guy was caught, and it was a run on TBC, he sells human parts. And what does he do? It's his friends that he lures to their deaths, and he's the one who carves out the parts from their bodies. And so the police is saying, when you're going anywhere, let somebody, at least one person, know where you're going.
It's called accountability.
You see, when she's going somewhere at night, she sends me her Uber details so I can follow the trip. And I know at every point that things are happening. But if you have that mindset that somebody's trying to kill you, then you can't send it. It's ignorant.
And it's the same mentality also that we think that when you kill someone, you get money. Like killing somebody gives you money. That's not how money works.
It's something we need to talk about.
Yeah, this is a conversation we need to have.
Go ahead, Marianne.
Well, I want to talk about out-of-school children, still bearing on ignorance. As we speak, the World Bank has said that we have over 20 million out-of-school children who should be in school but are not. And former President Olusegun Obasanjo is, saying that the huge number of out-of-school children is trouble for our future, and that's the truth. Because all of these young people are sitting ducks for Boko Haram. They're sitting ducks for
any kind of evil you want to think
criminality,
about.
whatever it is, cultism, and you see how cultism is a big deal today. Everybody is becoming one, blending with one thing or the other, and I really don't know what the idea is. So my biggest ask of the government, because I'm not begging them, it's a demand: prioritize education. Prioritize education. Right now, I know parents whose children are home because they can't afford school fees right now. School fees have skyrocketed. Parents are here now, hide their children at home till 3 o'clock, then they come out and play.
It's not only even school fees. The fact that is the entire
the cost of living,
because that's what I'm saying. The system
outside of even the school fees,
skewed.
they will tell you some schools are free and all of that. But what about the transportation, the feeding, and every other thing?
It's a potpourri of issues. So the whole system needs to be fixed.
So speaking to, I mean, ignorance, poverty, and everything, I thought this story was very troubling. My mom forcing me into prostitution. So this was a girl, a schoolgirl that alleged she's 15 years old in Delta State. Her name is Emanuela. She cried out for help from her hideout after escaping from a man who her mother allegedly gave her to, urging relevant authorities to rescue her from her abusive mother, who she accused of allegedly trying to force her into prostitution in exchange for money. I mean, so these are the kinds of things we'll be seeing, again, as the economy gets harsher. I remember when we were talking about, I don't know if you were on that show, we were talking about where the governor of Lagos State was saying reports issues around domestic violence. Remember what I said?
Yes.
I said, so, I mean, if it is your family, look at this now, it's her family. No. So how would you even tell that a child is being abused within the confines?
And even when you tell people, they may not necessarily believe
at all. It's very troubling that your own mother. My father relocated from Benin as a teenager because in his time was when this Italo business was high. So my father left Benin before any of us was ever born. He said he didn't want to have because the mindset then when you have a child and it's a female child, you send her to Italy to go and do prostitution and then take care of the family. So just because of that singular thing, he left Benin as a teenager. So he didn't want us to have that kind of mindset at all. That was why we were all born and raised in the north. Now you now see a mother taking her child for
would it be so? There was this particular one where we broke the story, or it was in a segment where we have the area talk and communication, or you get people to report what's going on. But prior to this time, we had broken the news where a child, I think it was an organization in Lagos that tipped, the state or the school. And then we found out that there's a little girl that had committed an abortion, and it led to her uterus being ruptured.
Hey.
Her mom is in the know of the fact that she's been abused. I mean, she was just 15 at the time or thereabout. And the mother is in the know that the uncle, the father's friend, has been abusing. And he happened to be in the political space. As a matter of fact, he was an aide to the former governor.
We need to have this conversation. We need to have this conversation around
aiding and
yes,
you know,
child sexuality, children being
child trafficking. The entire story that is happening in the US is around child trafficking. So it's a big thing.
and
It's a
even
big thing.
even this story that we need to
We
just
need to just move on. Let's move
We'll
on
talk about
because
it.
we have a guest with us. All right. So when we come back from that break, we want to discuss NSAS. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, so tonight we're reflecting on a pivotal moment in Nigeria's history when millions of voices, right, united against police brutality, demanding accountability and reforms. 4 years ago, the NSAS protest sparked a nationwide dialogue about the urgent need for systemic change and a ban on police brutality. Tragically, the protest ended in chaos, resulting in the loss of lives and properties, and of course, marking a somber day for Nigerian youth. As we reflect on that moment, we must ask, has anything truly changed? Just yesterday, Hassan Taiwo, Soweto, and 21 others were arrested during a peaceful gathering at the Lekki toll gate on Sunday to mark the 4th anniversary of the NSAS protest. Soweto, speaking after his release, alleged that the police subjected the group to violence during their brief detention at Panti police station. He claimed that Lagos State Commissioner of Police oversaw the arrest and mistreatment and demanded accountability for the actions taken against the demonstrators. So tonight, we'll delve into the aftermath of these or those historic protests that happened in 2020 and navigate the complexities of and, of course, the progress that has been made, if there are any, and, of course, discuss the enduring spirit of resilience in the quest for a better Nigeria. And all of these, we're going to be having this conversation with our guest, Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. She's a broadcast journalist and the founder of the Purple Woman Foundation. So she joins us virtually. Thank you so much, Ireti Bakare-Yusuf. Sisi Oge.
Hi, everyone. Hello, ladies. How are you?
We're very
great,
well.
we're great.
Great. I don't even know where to start from. But help me understand. Because I saw you posted something on
Let's
social.
start from 2020.
Yes, I saw you posted something on your Instagram page again, and it's just a reminder of what had happened in 2020. If you look back in hindsight, do you think that it was worth it? That protest, was it worth it?
Absolutely. It will always be worth it. And it's a good question that you ask, and it's interesting that you start from that question, because often my generation, so that's, a decade or so older than some of you anyway, what often happened and what had been happening was, so if you remember, the kids were protesting, and this was a young people's protest. So when I say kids, I don't mean that to be patronizing. In fact, the right word is young adults. So you had these young adults who had been protesting. And of course, by the time it got to 20, it was 12 days, I believe, 12 or 13 days. Because I remember, because we had been there every single day, me being my Purple Women, members of Purple Women Foundation, I remember counting the days. And, people felt, we told them they should have calmed down, they should have done this, they were causing traffic, the government had no choice, the government had told them to go home, it's a failure. And I said, absolutely not. And this is a message that I want to get to every single person, especially the young people. No protest is ever a failure. None. None. And I'll tell you why. Every protest gives oxygen to the next one. That's why protests are important. So you had the Ali Must Goes, right? You had the June 12th protests. You had several other protests after that. You had Occupy Nigeria. No protest is ever a failure. Now, it might feel like you haven't achieved what you wanted to achieve, but in actual fact, you have. Because whether they like it or not, those young adults, put the government on notice. Those young adults put the police on notice. You must remember that they had been tolerating so much for so long, for decades. And the one that constantly got to me was why it was illegal, or at least unofficially so, to the Nigerian police, that a young person couldn't have an iPad or a laptop in this day and age. They had to be a Yahoo boy. That always used to get to me all the time, because I would think, well, how are they supposed to work in this day and age, in this digital world? You know, if a young person doesn't have a laptop, they should at least have some sort of digital device, right? So yes, it was very, very, very successful. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean things have changed for today. It doesn't necessarily mean things have changed as they should have, but it does mean that the governor of Lagos State was put on notice. The governor of other states were put on notice. The president of Nigeria was put on notice. The army, in spite of their guns, the police, they were all put on notice. Those are the security services. Heck, the judiciary were put on notice. That generation of young adults who took part in that protest basically said to them, enough is enough, and we're not going to tolerate this anymore. Now, you can have bigger guns than us. You can be bigger than us. Heck, you can have more money than us. You may have stolen more money than us. But you see this Nigerian, we are not going to keep silent anymore. And that's what NSAS was about. NSAS wasn't just about police brutality. And that's, again, something that I constantly tell people when they've asked me this question. I said, it wasn't about police brutality, like all protests. So for me, I've been protesting since I was growing up in England. My sister was protesting and all of that stuff. And the thing most people don't understand about protest is the protest might be one thing, but that one thing is impregnated with several other layers. So the NSAS protest wasn't just about police brutality. It was about unemployment. It was about the bad economy. It was about corruption. It was about bad governance. It was about terrible, woeful, thieving politicians. It was about the Constitution, actually. It was about the rights of every Nigerian to be Nigerian and the rights that were afforded to us in that Constitution. So you see, there's no way that protest could ever have been a failure. It wasn't. And we have to keep reminding ourselves of that.
Okay.
So, okay, let me come. As much as I appreciate, because I think I'm on the same table with you, and I agree that that protest wasn't a failure. But then there are those who say that, well, if it wasn't a failure, how come these young people are no longer interested in protesting? We've not seen them come out in their numbers. We saw the last two protests. It was just wishy-washy. Although this one, this time, was more about our parents. Secondly, they blame your generation and the ones higher for abandoning their duty posts and now having to let them be the ones coming to cry out to the government. With the arrests, the killing, the fact that government have still not owned up to the fact that people were killed and their bodies that are yet to still be recovered. I mean, who's to say that wings were not clipped and that government has not necessarily gotten anything? Because you said that the federal government or the presidency was put on notice. Were they really?
Well, they were. So you see, it's one thing. Think of it like an abusive husband or an abusive partner, right? You can keep beating your partner, but for as long as your partner refuses to actually kowtow, then you are not winning. So let's go back to what you're saying. What you're saying is, you know, and I get it. The few protests that have happened, they haven't been as enthusiastic, right?
Yeah.
There hasn't been mass outrage or mass response. Well, the government of Nigeria like to intimidate, right? We know that. We, unfortunately, have successive governments who are actually afraid of the citizens. By the way, the same citizens who employ them. But anyway, let's put that aside. Here's the thing, though. Did you notice that soon as I've forgotten the title for the last protest, the one about hunger.
End hunger.
Hunger protest.
End hunger protest.
The hunger protest. Yes. That particular protest, soon as government was going to say, you can't do it, they had to turn the narrative around and actually start to appeal that actually, yes, you can, but we'd just like you to do this. Just, don't allow hoodlums. Just don't do this. So you see, the previous Nigerian government wouldn't have done that. I remember days before those hunger protests, 10 days of rage, that's what they were called. For the first time ever, Nigerian ministers, and I was on those Twitter spaces, Nigerian ministers were on Twitter spaces every day. I'm not talking 1 hour, it went on for hours because they would take it in turns. And they were there explaining themselves, explaining what their portfolio was, what they achieved, how they achieved it. They would not have done that before. They would not have. And Nigerians, I mean, it was massive. It was, I don't know, thousands of people were on there. All I did was listen, as I often do when I'm on Twitter Spaces, and especially when it's Twitter Spaces by young people. The people on the Twitter Spaces, the audience, could ask them questions. Yes, Segalink was the host, but here you had Nigerian ministers answering, trying to convince the citizens of Nigeria, the young citizens of Nigeria. Oh, my dear, certainly.
Okay.
Our people are winning. They are winning. That's one. Number one. Number two is, remember, a message was then given to the police. The police had to come out and say, we're not going to do this. We're just there to protect you. We're there to guide you, etc., etc. They wouldn't have done that before NSAS. They didn't do that before NSAS. Heck, I was out on day one. Day one, the first hour of Occupy Nigeria. I was there. That was my first protest in Nigeria. It was in the one in Ganifawa Park, not the Champagne one in Falamo, in Ikoyi. And I tell you, the police were not our friends. But this time, and they didn't try to be. But this time, they've been trying to sell themselves. Look, we are your friends.
I'm a bit conflicted because I feel like there was a lot of clamping, for this last protest that happened.
Yeah.
Like the restrictions were just too many. Yeah. You can't go here, you can't do that.
Because they lie.
Yeah, okay, you know what?
It's one thing. They say one thing and they do another.
Yeah.
We know that. It's
okay,
Nigerian police.
Nigerian police
will call you and say, we'd like to talk to you at the station. You get them, you're under arrest. You're going into the jail. Because we have. Because I know they've done it to me before. So I know. Okay. And they thought they were going to intimidate me. Do you understand? And that's what Nigerian police will not come and knock on your door and say, by the way, madam, you're under arrest for this. They'll call you on the phone and say, we want you to come. The DPO just wants to talk to you. In my case, they said they wanted to sort the idiots who slapped me and I slapped back. Not a boyfriend. I wouldn't date such a thug. But in any event, they called me by phone, said to me, we just want to sort out things between both of you. And then, you get there and they had other plans. But this is not about me. So yes, it's one thing. They say one thing and they do another. But the fact that they were held to attention before the 10 days of rain.
So that's all that matters, which is what would never have happened before.
It's an inch forward.
Okay.
It's an inch forward.
Okay. All right. I'm sure Messi is itching to ask a question, but let's just go out on a short break. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're having a conversation. When we have Sisi again, you know that the matter cannot be normal. She's joined us to review the 4 years anniversary of the NSAS protest, and we're asking, how far has this gone? Has there been any shift? The protest and around conversations also around patriotism. Now, if you are joining the conversation, send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-8038-4663. You can also call us on 070250077749 or 0701424240. Remember to turn off the volume of whatever device it is you're watching us from so we don't get a feedback. Messi.
All right. So I just take it up from this point. I think that it would be fair for us to talk about the protest and also look at some of the demands that were made, although you have stated that the actual, essence of it wasn't just about demanding the reforms in the police sector, but they literally made some demands. They talked about, increase in salaries for the police officers. They made several demands. This is one amongst so many. So 4 years down the line, do you think that, these demands have been met by the authorities?
Well, certainly, I think one of the things, let's talk about the police officers that you mentioned. So you see, the same people who were brutalizing our children are the same people that our children were trying to help. It's really also very ironic, and that truly is the story of Nigeria. It's a carpet of, irony. But anyway, I think to an extent, the police, I believe, did get some pay rise. And so, what should I say? There are plans to do more. So I know that, for instance, in Lagos, they're rebuilding the police barracks in Ikoyi. So possibly there are others going out. The increase in salary is happening. I can't remember the other items that were made, but the other demands that were made. But I remember that Governor Sanwo-Olu came out at the time, and they were making some changes. One of the things we must bear in mind is, aside of the fact that we live in a country where things move, good things move very slowly. Bad things move at the speed of light. Protests, and when you make these demands, do not happen immediately. Because it's also, we have to remember, we are changing mindsets. A protest is also like a project, right? When you implement a change project, you have to identify your blockers. There goes my whole time, all my years in corporate. You identify your blockers. Those are the people who you're going to have a problem changing their mind. And then you identify those who will, I've forgotten the word we call them now, the ones that receive it, right? So you've got the people who are listening, and the mind of the people, the mindset of those people, when I say people, the citizens of Nigeria, was changed. I assure you, the mindset of the citizens of Nigeria was changed. Now, you have the mindset of the leaders. They are your blockers. Because guess what? What those young adults were doing is they put a mirror to them and said, this is what you're doing to us. So, and it's very, very hard for people to take accountability, especially when the accountability is so brazen. But they have begun to take accountability. Nigeria is not there yet, and I'm not expecting Nigeria to be there. You know what I say about NSAS? See, many people talk about the not happenings of NSAS as a result. And I say, no, I don't want to put my people, my children, I don't want to put them off protesting. You see, protesting is one of the greatest form of patriotism. That's one of the things they are yet to understand in this country. And when I say they, I mean our leaders. You see, You have patriotism that comes in so many different fashions. Some join the army, some create an NGO, some create jobs, some volunteer, and all sorts of things, right? But you have the patriotism of dissent. The patriotism of dissent is one of the greatest patriotism, because that is the one that constantly interrogates the policy, it interrogates the leaders, it interrogates government.
But Sisioge, it doesn't
It
seem,
speaks truth
I'm so
to
sorry,
power.
but it doesn't seem that
Go
our
on.
government, successive governments, including the government of the day, likes the idea of dissenting voices. They want everybody to...
They don't need to like it.
Well,
We're not asking them to like
but
it.
isn't that why
We're not asking them to like
isn't
it.
that why we see the clamping down? Look at a police commissioner coming out on national television to tell us what's not in the Constitution, to tell us that we're supposed to go and ask them permission before we protest. So even these guys don't even know their jobs. They are appendages of the government, and they do whatever the politician tells them. So again, really, are these guys serious about anything that we're saying or anything that we're doing, or they're just doing their own and say when they're tired, like Akpabio said, you know, you people should keep shouting, we'll keep eating. I mean, it looks like they're taking us for granted.
Yes. Well, no, I'm not saying that they're definitely on our side. No, I'm not saying they're on our side. But, you know, if you notice, that's why you have constitutional lawyers, right? Because when the young adults come out and they say, we want to do this, it's our right, they've already gotten permission. They've gotten, when I say permission, they've gotten advice from the likes of Femi Falana. So when the police commissioner comes out and says something that isn't in the Constitution, if Femi Falana comes out to challenge, and Agbakoba comes out to challenge, okay, the young Guinea Behe, F Young, comes out to challenge, right? Because every single time, again, I go back to it, we never seek, dissenters do not seek permission. Dissenters dissent because it has to be done. So you also have dissenters who are protesters, because protesting isn't just about going out on the streets. You have boycotts. You have, I can tell you personally, during NSAS, corporates who were calling me and saying, Ireti, get those children going. This is money. But they didn't want to show their faces because they knew it had to happen. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So if I may go back to the children, and if I may go back to, you know, 2020 itself. So I had been out, I think they started, and I was watching. I watched day 1, I watched day 2. Day 3, I knew I had to be out there. I was like, these children are serious. I like it. I like it. So basically what I did was, very quickly, I sent a message to a few friends, and I said, look, I'm going out to protest, because it occurred to me that there will be women who want to go out, but they might be afraid, you know, and there's, as they say, strength in numbers, right? So I basically sent out a message, and I got, you know, I think there was 20 odd of us. We met by City of David. We walked there. The women absolutely loved it. By the time, I set up a WhatsApp group just for security reasons, saying if somebody gets lost, just put a message here, I'll come and find you. By the time we finished, that WhatsApp group was oversubscribed. We had to create several. But my point is, so you had women of my generation, are you with me?
Yeah.
Who then said, you know what, we want to keep supporting. So what we decided to do was, we decided to give them sustenance, because when they are protesting, they need sustenance. So we literally set up a site, and we did 2 shifts a day, right? Food, drinks. We were the first to give out the flags. That's how Purple Women was born, incidentally. That's how Purple Women Foundation came
Ireti,
out.
I want to...
So let me go back to the children.
Okay.
Sorry, the children. On the 20th, on that particular day, and that's what I'm saying to you, dissent and defiance is the absolute ultimate form of patriotism. On that very day, remember that the governor gave 4 hours notice for the curfew. Oh, I remember. I remember very, very clearly. He gave 4 hours notice for the curfew. Yeah, because I'm in the news, but of course I also check the news because we're out every day. So he gives 4 hours notice for the curfew. The kids were out there, but as soon as he gave the curfew, everybody started going home. Those kids refused to go home. Those young adults said, we are going to stand here and we are going to protest. It was at that point that I thought to myself, I've got to go out there because now there is no other adult out there with those children. There needs to be an adult if these people come shooting. So that's why I went out there and I was sitting there waiting. I just sat on the side and I saw this DJ Switch doing a thing. They were all waving their flag. They were all having fun singing Nigerian anthem. I sat there and it was an incredibly hot day. I will never forget it. Incidentally, I then said, DJ Switch said the curfew had been postponed. What she meant to say was the curfew had been extended. So when I heard that, I asked the young boy next to me, he said, yes, that's what she said. So I left. I thought they didn't need me. Right? I get home, and I don't live far from there. But I don't live far from there, even though I don't live far from there, whatever goes on at the toll gate, I don't hear in my house. But I promise you, they started shooting from outside my house.
Okay, so Ireti, I want us to quickly move on to the current president. I mean, he has been a very big, what's it called, supporter and promoter of protest, right, in the past.
Chief protester.
Yes, he's the chief, if there was a word like chiefest protester, he's the chiefest. So there's a chief, there's the chiefest.
Yes,
right?
he was.
And you know, is it for me, most times when I wonder, when I see this clamp down, I wonder, is it that he understands the power that lies within a protest that is making him, you know, kind of like every time they want to be a protest, he's very proactive, bullish, you know, sending different people to send threats and all of those things. Because again, these are his people. The commissioner of police cannot act without his what's it called? His command or whatever it is, that the word that's skipping my head now. So how do we first of all understand what the president knows that we do not know? Because I feel like a lot of young people understand that protest is powerful, but I don't think they understand how powerful it can get and what they can do. And that's why you see that with every protest after the NSAS protest, it seems like the momentum and the whatever is diminishing, right? Because people are beginning to be apprehensive again. Parents will come out to you and tell you, I beg, oh, my daughter, don't go. I know how many calls my own parents called me, please don't go anywhere. You know, so we see all of those things happening. So how do we turn that around, like 360, and give the young people, give ourselves the kind of boldness and courage that we had in 2020? How can we reverse that? Because something changed when that shooting happened. We cannot deny it, right? A lot of things changed. So how do we shift and how do we make that reversal and take us back to where our minds were in 2020, if at all there has to be future protests?
It's a very good question you ask. And I can honestly say the president knows the power of protests because he knows what he did during that deco. Remember, I called him out in my video. I said to him, how dare you? These kids are doing exactly what you did during that deco. They're following your footsteps. And you have a right to do this? You think this is what you can do to them? So he knows. They all know. If you remember, the governor came on Arise TV and he looked scared. They knew. So basically what had been happening, if you look at it, the protest had gone on for 12 days. That means the children had them under arrest for 12 days. 12 days. Lekki Tollgate is never going to be collecting toll again. I'm pretty sure of that. Right? It's now called NSAS bus stop. It's no longer called Tollgate bus stop because that's what we're going to call it. It's no longer a tollgate for us. So when the president, who has been a protester who was a dissenter, who was an activist, knows what he achieved through activism, then he knows what can be achieved through activism. Buhari was afraid because even Buhari knew what could be achieved through activism. They all know. And how can we change this around? Here's one thing that I'll say. I'm going to call out my generation at this point because I hold a lot of them responsible. And that's not to say they don't care. That's not to say they didn't protest in the past before they start lecturing. We've done it before. Yes, whatever, we know you have. Here's my thing. I said after NSAS, if we all the parents, my generation, if we all went out there and actually protected those kids, nobody would have shot at them. I'm pretty sure of it. Why am I angry with our governor? He said the first he heard about the shooting was they were in a meeting, and I remember his words very clearly. They were in a meeting, and one of his direct reports came in. The wife had called one of the commissioners and said this was going on. That was the first he heard. And I always say, then what did you do? Because hang on a minute, those are your children out there. If somebody calls you and says they're shooting at your children, you don't sit around and start making calls. Heck, you're using a mobile phone. You call your deputy, you get in the car. You say, we're going to site now. Nobody's going to do that to my children. And I promise you, nobody would have been able to shoot at those kids. If my generation had gone out, nobody would have been able to shoot at those kids. So how can we give them that courage back? First and foremost, they haven't lost their courage. They're not dead. That courage hasn't died because we see it all the time. But what we need to do is to empower them with more courage, to give them the fuel that they need to keep going on. Now, it doesn't matter whether we agree. See, this is also the other thing. There are so many protests that happen that one doesn't agree with. But they still have a right to protest, right? They have a right to march. Look at the women's march, the Million Women's March we did a couple of years ago. We were out there. We marched to Alausa. We were peaceful. Incidentally, the governor's wife got somebody to call me to say she wanted to join us. She joined us. So it's my generation now that needs to keep saying, and I get what you're saying about your mom. My mom, she was calling, Ireti, your video has gone everywhere, you're going to kill me, please just don't go out. Don't go out, or they're going to kill you. They're going to kill you. Right? Everybody was worried. Meanwhile, my son was calling from England saying, Mom, everybody's talking about you, I'm so proud of you. You know, generations, right?
Yeah. All right.
Generation.
Our parents are always afraid.
Yes, our parents are. So I will always support young people to protest. I will always support them. That picture you showed, that's Promise. In the picture was Promise, Joseph, Ransom, and Farhad. And I've forgotten the name of the other young lady.
Kayode. I see a Kayode there. Yeah, for somebody.
These kids were protesting every day. They gave up their jobs. Yes, I repeat, they gave up their jobs.
Wow.
To go and protest because they said,
we have a text message here quickly. Can we quickly take this text message and then we just continue briefly? So this one reads, good evening, my dear beautiful sisters of What Are You Saying? #Ways. 4 years anniversary of #NSAS, protest and patriotism in Nigeria. To my own assessment and judgment, nothing has changed. Since after the protest, your beautiful guest made mention of the building of the police station. That is not what Nigerians are after. The main reason for the protest is because there's still terrible hunger in the land. Up until now, there's not been an increase in the salaries of the masses. This is one of the reasons why there was a protest. Nigerians need a quick response and action. Nigerians are not that patient. They want a quick and immediate action after the protest. To me, Nigerians have actually done absolutely nothing as regards the protest. I see it as a wasted effort, according to him. My dear beautiful sister Uwa made mention of the shooting that took place and how people lost their lives. That should not be ignored. The reason of the protest should be achieved, but it hasn't, as far as I am concerned. The poor are getting poorer, the rich are getting richer. This should not happen in the first place. And this is what Daniel...
So, Ireti, we have like a minute to run, right?
But I just want to say something about
quickly
how you memorialize the dead. You can't memorialize the dead by looking at the protest that killed them as a failure.
Yeah.
Because you would have said they died in vain.
Yeah.
It is, yes, of course, things have not moved, and we have to separate endsars, now we're in hunger, etc., etc. That's a whole different debate, and I'll be happy to come back here and have that debate. But with regards to endsars, many died. There was a massacre, but they did not die in vain. I assure you, it might feel like it. Heck, there was the judicial review. Lagos State hasn't done what they were supposed to do. Other states haven't done what they were supposed to do. Okay, so you have groups like Enough is Enough who are still continuing in that effort. And it will happen. I am not going to hold on to the pessimism.
Yeah. Okay.
Of those days. Not at all. I think that would be a disservice to those who lost their lives.
It would be a disservice. Thank you so much, Ireti. Sadly, we ran out of time, but I think we should continue to have this conversation. As I said, if we keep the conversations at the front burner, then it's easier, to make sure that we keep reminding people this is why we even started all of this in the first place. But thank you for your resilience.
Remind them that protest is the greatest form of patriotism.
Yes.
Yeah. Simple.
Absolutely. Yeah. But thank you so much. You do a lot, and we must commend your effort, and we'll keep supporting you and rooting for you as well, as we do our part as well. Thank you so much, Sisi Oge. All right, before we go, ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. Like, share, and invite your families and friends to watch and follow the conversation. Thank you, Marianne, and thank you, Messi. All right, if you missed our quote for today, here it is. Prisons do not disappear problems. They disappear human beings, right? So it does not change the problem. So let's be intentional about solving the problem. See you guys tomorrow. Peter, wait.
Hey guys, it's Oluchi for Raise Breakfast. Thanks for always tuning in. Our research has shown that you're probably not subscribed to our channel. What are you waiting for? Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you never miss out on our latest content and stay in the loop with all things Ways. If the channel grows, it means more great content for you guys. So hit that subscribe button now.